you hear me?
Now I can hear you, yes.
Okay. How are you
Hi.
doing, Donna?
Good, Anna, how are you?
I'm okay. Thank you so much. You look great. You look great.
Thank you,
Oh.
thank you. Well, I had to have my A game for you.
Okay, I see. Donna, how are you doing? How's the weather in Florida?
Hot and rainy, but it's still a beautiful day. It's a sunshine state.
Thank you so much for your Monday morning. Yes. Donna, I would like to introduce you a little bit to our audience. So Donna Cotterell, today is our guest, Donna Cotterell. Yes, my guest, because I'm planning to make these kind of interviews with people to help me to shed some light on social and cultural issues. Yes, and Donna Cotterell is educator, writer, producer, director, actress, and activist residing in Florida, Tallahassee, right? Am I
Right,
right?
you got it.
Yes, I've got it. I got some information about you, and I remember you as a very nice person because we met in 2014 in Jakarta, right?
That's right,
It
yes.
was like 6 years ago, quite long time ago. But we met in
Yes,
Jakarta because during the period of your presentation of the project That's My Bali, right? If
that's
I'm not
right.
mistaken. Yes. Donna, maybe you can tell us a little bit about that project and about your spiritual journey in Indonesia. How was it?
Absolutely. Yes, Bali changed my life, and I had an amazing journey of self-discovery where, believe it or not, the first time I went to Bali, I met a man from Tallahassee. So that
Okay.
was the spirit's way of reminding me that I had other places to go, because I fell in love with Bali. I would have stayed there, I would have lived there. But I think it was the third night that I was there in Tallahassee, I met a man named Angel, believe it or not, from
Angel.
Tallahassee.
Okay.
Angel, yes. But in the process of just being in Bali for 3 weeks and really feeling into the spirit of my dad had passed in 2013,
I'm
and I really
sorry.
feel like it
My
was his
condolences.
spirit that pushed me to go to Bali, to really step out of my comfort zone
Mm-hmm.
and to
Mm-hmm.
discover the new me, the new Donna.
Yes.
Um, yeah. So I have to say that Tallahassee has been good to me, and I have um, done some art in terms of using theater to discuss race, to discuss gender equality issues,
Of course.
as
Of
well
course.
as looking at how we treat one another.
Exactly. Donna, as well as all your activities, you are also a founder of Indaba Theatre in Tallahassee, right? In Florida, if I'm not mistaken. It,
Right.
it was,
Indaba Theatre actually started in New England. So it was Indaba Theatre
oh,
of New England.
yes.
Um, and then once I moved to Tallahassee, Indaba Theatre continued in Brockton, Massachusetts. And then I started Indaba Theatre Florida in
Mm-hmm.
November of 2015.
Yes, yes, I read that it was created in 2005. It's like 15 years ago, quite long time ago, yes?
A very long time
Very
ago. And
long.
it, at the same time, it seems like it was yesterday. Um,
Yes, yes, yes.
yeah.
Can you please tell us what does Indaba mean?
Indaba is a Zulu word for coming together for a meeting or a purpose.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
our purpose is to inspire, empower, uplift, and to create healthy outlets of self-expression using theater as therapy to help people overcome obstacles in their life.
Of course, it is super important, I think. Yes. And Donna, I also would like to ask you about the theatrical play that was written by you, uh, titled Marigold Days, which tells us the story about the 5 generations of a family living in Tallahassee, right? And about your great great grandfathers who were both brought to that area as enslaved boys. Yes? So
Yes,
maybe you
yes.
can tell us a little bit about that theatrical play, yes, the Marigold Days.
Marigold Days is something that came to me back in 2015, and you're absolutely right, Anna. It goes back to my enslaved grandfathers who were brought
Mm-hmm.
here to this area. On my mom's side, Prince Griffin
Mm-hmm.
uh, was he was enslaved, but he also was a landowner, and we still
Oh,
have land in Prince Griffin's name. He had 80 acres out on Gum Road here in Tallahassee, which we still have 12 acres in my family. And believe it or not, the land has not been probated yet. So I was fortunate enough to discover his history through what they call eminent domain, the taking of the land by the state to expand the roadway, which brought out a
okay.
whole bunch of relatives, some that I'd never met before.
Oh,
And then
yes.
on my dad's side, we have my great great grandfather, Mingo Bradwell. And Mingo was bought at auction in Goose Creek, South Carolina at 8 years old and sold away from his mom to a family that was moving to the new territory of Florida. But there were a lot of massacres that were going on between the Native Americans and the whites and the free blacks here in Florida. So they
Hmm.
settled in Bainbridge, Georgia for a time. And during that time, my great great grandmother, Sarah Bradwell, was a Native American girl who was saved from the Trail of Tears by enslaved women uh, who were part of that Bradwell plantation. And when the master found out that this young Native American girl was alive, he wanted to have her killed because of the perceived threat, which
Yeah.
really reminds me of how African Americans and Native Americans have continually been seen as a threat, even as children. You
Yes.
fast
Yes.
forward to Tamir Rice, 12 years old, being murdered. And we look at our lives throughout the history of America as dispensable, unfortunately. But the good thing is she was saved, and she and my great great grandfather had 17 children between them.
Wow, wow. You see, so they got blessing at the end of the story. Yes, and it's very nice. It's very nice. So with this story and with this theater, you also shed the light to the history, to the post-slavery period, as I understood. Yes, after this Jim Crow rules era and everything that has happened in this within that 100 years. Yes, until 1965, when all of that was over.
Yes, and I have my mom is one of the central characters in the play because
Mm-hmm.
she spans the 5 generations. And
Yeah.
then when we performed it first in 2015, but we performed it again this year in 2020 in
Mm-hmm.
February, and I included my grandson. So now it's covering 7 generations. And one of the
Exactly.
things that Native Americans talk about is preserving the earth for the seventh generation. So we have that iteration of the seventh generation through my grandson.
Yeah.
So it's amazing to see that trajectory of history. And like you said, coming through slavery, coming through post-slavery, Reconstruction, Jim Crow, the Civil Rights
Yeah.
Movement, and then here we are, the Black Lives Matters movement. So
Exactly.
we see that the American story is
Yeah.
beginning to evolve as the African American story is evolving or being shown a light on.
Yes, yes, exactly, exactly. And Donna, because we all know that Black people are dealing with over 400 plus years of oppression, right? It's like the whole story of USA. It's connected with oppression of Black people, right? So that's why it's really good that you show all this story in your theater. And you had any of the performances during these 5 years? The first was in 2015, and then it was in 2020. Yes, so two times you screened, or you have it on a like a scheduled basis or something like that.
We wanted to travel. We wanted to
Mhm.
move the play across the state and then possibly across the country, but COVID-19 put a
Yeah.
pause on that for now. However,
Yeah,
I'm really looking forward to lifting up the stories of people like George Floyd and Breonna
exactly.
Taylor and the transgender man who was killed here by police, Tony McDade, because these are the untold stories that show
Yeah.
the continuation of the brutalization of Black bodies in America.
Okay. Yes, Donna, and also I know that you are working as an activist, so maybe you can give us a little information. What does systemic racism mean? Yes, how does it work? I mean, like if we already speak about 400 years of oppression, yeah, so it's a long period, very long period. And we see the situation today with George Floyd, because it's now Black Lives Matter, but Black Lives Matter already existed since 2012, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, already like for 8 years, this movement
Right.
existing. Yes, so maybe you can just give us a little bit of explanation. What does it mean? How does it work, this systemic racism, and can we put an end to it? Is it possible?
Wow, that's a really good question, and of course has lots of answers depending on
Yes,
who's telling the story and the
exactly.
angle. But as a Black woman, I can say that systemic racism today is structured racism, meaning corporate as well as federal and state laws and policies
Mm,
that disproportionately affect African Americans. We're looking at voting today and
yes,
how so many districts who claim that they're trying to help support folks who are living through the pandemic by opening up polls, where they're actually decreasing the number of polls and having people stand in lines for hours,
mm-hmm.
whereas we see that it disproportionately affects more African Americans than whites. And
Yes,
now that we have been in a quarantine environment, a lot of people, rightly so, think we should do the mail-in ballots because that way we won't be putting ourselves in harm's way. But we see
yes,
how that system is trying to be dismantled, even going to the point of um, 45, I'll call him, wants to get rid of the postal service, which will,
yes,
of course, disrupt mail-in ballot service. So to me, that goes back to a time here in Florida where the Black vote was suppressed, where there was a massacre in
yeah.
1920,
Oh,
100 years ago,
100 years
almost to
ago.
the day of this election, November 2nd,
Mm-hmm.
1920. There were a couple of prominent, wealthy African American men who were not only registering people to vote along with the
Okay.
NAACP, but also paying the poll tax, which was a way to, again, suppress the vote by making poor Black people have to
Mm-hmm.
pay to vote,
Oh,
where, most people in 1920s, it was not possible. So
of
what this
course.
man was doing was he was actually paying the poll tax. So the white supremacists, the Ku Klux Klan in
Yeah.
Ocoee,
Mm-hmm.
um, I'm going to say, didn't like what was happening
Mm-hmm.
and decided to track this man down to the home of his friend, his partner. And then when he wasn't found, they burned the man's house down. He and his wife and his daughter tried to hide in the barn. They burned him out of his barn. They never did find the man that they were looking for. But this man, his name was July Perry.
July
July's
3rd.
body hung for 2 weeks from a telephone pole to
Oh,
warn other Blacks not to vote. And Blacks did not move back into the city of Ocoee, which is just north of Orlando, where everyone knows where Disney is, for 61 years. It wasn't until 1981 that Blacks moved back into the city of Ocoee. So I want to lift up that story because it just reminds us how important it is as African Americans to vote and how, or the lengths to which our vote was suppressed.
exactly, exactly. Thank you so much for this story, Donna. Yes, it's very important because you have just the election in November, right? The election is coming and you have all these preparations now, right?
Right. Yes. And
Yes, yes.
yeah. And I want to encourage folks to vote in their primary election because,
Mm,
as we've been hearing, local judges and the sheriffs and those who are the law and order
mm-hmm.
candidates,
Yeah,
those folks are really vetted out through the primary process before we get to the presidential election. So some folks kind of
yeah.
will wait for the presidential election before they'll go
Mm-hmm.
out and vote. But it's so important to vote in the primary election. I'm going to say to get rid of that old boy network,
Yeah.
the ones who have been, put in positions of power because they're going to continue to toe the party line. So
Yes,
I'm really hoping that folks will come out, and here in Florida in August is our primary, August 18th.
in August,
So I'm
yes.
hoping that folks will come out and vote in the primary as well as the
Of
presidential
course,
election.
of course, of course. Let's hope for that. Yes. Donna, last time we discussed, you and I, we discussed the racial issues back in 2014, after the Ferguson clashes happened the day after the fatal shooting of Michael Brown. If you remember, we had this conversation with you, just chatting, and I felt very sad about that, because I watched in CNN, in TVs, those clashes and those riots, and I understood what people wanted. Yes, and what can we do with this kind of police brutality? Has anything changed since that moment? Because nowadays the situation with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor as well, which is absolutely crazy, isn't it? And maybe you can tell us a little bit. Has there been any changes in the situation?
Unfortunately not. And with, excuse me, the story of Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor, we see that just being Black and
Yeah,
taking a jog in your neighborhood or sleeping in your own bed can
in
get
your
you
own
killed.
house. Yes.
Yes, because a lot of times people say, oh, well, they weren't committing crimes and they wouldn't have been, victims. But
Yeah,
how can we say that when we see that just doing the normal everyday things of life um,
absolutely.
can create deadly force interventions? And then I think about the young man in Colorado
Mm,
who may have been on the autism spectrum, who had issues around socialization and could
yeah.
verbalize and say, I'm an introvert, you're in my personal space, please, give me space.
Yes, yes.
And I think about, I have two nephews who are autistic. One of my best friends, her son is autistic. And these are brilliant young men, sweet, kind young men who,
Hmm.
because of something that they have no control over, someone can actually overpower them.
Yes, yes. But actually, Donna, a lot of people put some expectations on Obama presidency. Yes, because it was a historical figure. He was the first Black president, and I suppose he's just amazing. And but I suppose that maybe that was also like it became noticeable, because maybe white people were so afraid of having this kind of president. I mean, like Black president, because it started even before Trump, right? It became even noticeable while Obama's presidency. How do you think? Is it based on fear? It's probably based on fear.
It's definitely based on fear. And I actually had a conversation with my grandson
Yeah.
back in, uh, he was 8 years old, so he's 12 now. So 4 years ago, President
Mhm.
Obama had a town hall on race. And I was spending a couple of weeks with him down here in Florida. So
Mhm.
he and I watched the special together. And he asked me, why were white people who grew up with President Obama afraid of him? So, like you
Exactly.
said, the fear.
Yeah.
And I had explained to him white supremacy, and I'm going to say white fragility, in terms of, you know, there's a lot of white people who think they're enlightened. However, when I want to say confronted with Black faces, but
Mhm.
just seeing Black faces, become
Yeah.
afraid, not because we're scary people, but the perception for
Yes.
centuries has been we are a threat. Just the color of our skin is a threat. So even
Mhm.
though these people grew up with President Obama, knew him as a child, when he became a man, would clutch their purse or cross the street when they saw him coming. And I think
Exactly.
my grandson was internalizing that because he goes to a predominantly white school. His future stepfather is white. He has lots of cousins who are white. When I say cousins, I should say his aunts and uncles, because I have a very
Yeah.
racially mixed family.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so he, in his 8-year-old mind, he's trying to figure out, is this going to happen to me? Are people going to
Exactly.
become afraid of me? Um, and I have to say, when he got on the plane to go back to Massachusetts, I cried my eyes out because I could based on the history of my family, looking at my great-great-grandmother who was perceived as a threat as a young girl,
Exactly.
at Tamir Rice, and then looking at my 8-year-old grandson getting on a plane as a unaccompanied minor
Mm-hmm.
who,
Mm-hmm.
might perceive him as a threat. He's just an
Yes.
innocent 8-year-old boy going back home to his mom.
Yes. And actually, when I was preparing for our meeting here in Zoom, I read a very good article on your Facebook that you posted. And I remember there was a message that when you are saying a word thug, yes, addressing to a person of color, it is the same like an N word, because it has no connection, because anybody can be thug. It doesn't depend on the color of the skin, isn't it? I mean, like, why we need to labelize exactly like that? Yes, because it's just,
Yes, yes. Which brings me, back to you were asking about Michael Brown.
yes,
Unfortunately, he's here, an 18-year-old kid. Yeah, he was a big
exactly.
boy, but he was, perceived as a thug,
Yes,
someone to, be feared and quote unquote taken down when he was just an 18-year-old kid hanging out with his friends, um, just doing normal things that 18-year-old kids do. But
exactly,
he was
exactly.
painted as a thug. Like you said, that word thug, um, I don't
Yes,
even know what to say because it's not a word to me that describes any young men that I know.
exactly, exactly. Because it never depends. As for me, it never depends on the color of the skin, right? It can be, I mean, like, yes, and Michael Brown was just 18 years old. Wow, crazy. And Donna, tell me please, what is your perception and what is your opinion on Black Lives Matter movement? Because nowadays it becomes global, right? Because even the people who might be not really into media or into news, they already know this movement. There are hashtags and it becomes well known. Yes. So how do you think? Can it change
Yes,
something? Do we have a hope for that?
I have the utmost hope, especially knowing that it was started by two Black women. We, as Black women, I mean, we have, I'm going to say, double oppression. One being women, two being Black, and
Exactly.
we have to, we want to hold up our people in a
Mm-hmm.
way that not only supports men, but supports women and our endeavors in our community. And I won't say to quote unquote save our community. I don't want to have that perception of Black women as the saviors.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but what we do know, the I'm going to say the uh, perception of Black women is as strong Black women comes from having to defend ourselves as women, defend ourselves as
Yes.
Black, and even in the corporate world. I mean, I worked in finance for 5 years, and never once did I see any Black women in senior positions or positions of power within the corporation. And here in the state of Florida, I worked for the state of Florida and found that Black women are the least paid um,
Yes.
throughout the state, which leads a lot of Black women to have to work 2 and 3 jobs to support their families. So, here we are on the front lines, just doing our everyday duty as women to support ourselves and our
Exactly.
families, but we're out here in the streets and I'm going to say raising a ruckus to make sure that we get treated equally.
Yes, yes, that's it. That's the idea. Because this world is for any women, yes, it's very hard. Moreover, for women of color, of course, because it becomes a double challenge, right? Yes.
Right, yes, yes. But a worthy challenge because we have
It,
just some amazing, gifted, talented people who I'm watching these young people um, who are saying, you know what, y'all been carrying the torch for the last 50 something years. It's our turn now. And they are
yeah.
doing amazing things. I mean, watching these Confederate statues and the flag of Mississippi being taken down and given a new life and new opportunity
Yes.
to show we're worthy.
Yes, and you're changing that, and you're changing the perception and everything, and it's really good. Yes, because the world needs to know the other side of the story, right?
Right,
I think that's
right.
important. I think that's the most important thing, right? And Donna, can I ask you also the last question, probably, like, what are you doing now during this coronavirus? I mean, like, do you plan any further screenings, any for further performances of your theater, or Marigold Days maybe, or maybe we can see something online, or are you in the process of something?
I'm in the process of developing some drama therapy, believe
Oh,
it or not, online because,
yes,
I think we all are in need of healing in one way or another.
yes,
And oftentimes it's healing from the narrative, that story that we've been told that no longer exists. And then how do we move and, I'm going to say, future forward our, our being.
yeah,
And so one of the things that I've been working on is looking at doing some online therapeutic um, theater for folks who really want to get in touch with, I'm going to say, their purpose in life and why
yeah.
they're here. And then the other thing I'm actually doing is a business enterprise. I just got my certification as a pastor grants manager.
Oh,
So for folks who are looking to get funding, and I think we talked about this too back in Jakarta,
yeah,
grants and grants management is an area that I'm moving into on the business side. On the theater side, definitely looking to do some online theater classes, theater workshops.
yes.
Um, so stay tuned.
Yes, yes, please let us know. Let us know. Maybe you have YouTube channel or something I can put below our video. And I also have connection with you in Facebook. So please always let me know, let us know, yes, the audience, because nowadays everything goes into online platforms. Yes, so everything becomes online. And maybe that's good also because during this quarantine, I had a lot of time to go through YouTube channels and get the information that I need, and this kind of autodidact learning also might be useful, and I think it might be really cool. Yeah,
I agree that, yeah, there's a lot of stuff online, like you said, that can help with self-growth and
yes.
learning new techniques. I have one friend, she's basically reinventing herself from all the YouTube videos that she's been watching.
These tutorials, yes, it's crazy. I'm the whole day I'm watching different kind of tutorials, different kind of workshops, and it works. It works, and it's good. I like that.
Yes, I think we should all take advantage of the fact that we're in quarantine, we're in lockdown, and it's a time to rejuvenate and to renew
Yes.
ourselves.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. How is it going in USA? Are you getting, because I saw in news that you're getting a little bit, you lessen the quarantine, but you also had this like spike or something, how you say, yes, because it's all over the world, yes?
Well, the funny thing is, Florida was one of those states that decided to reopen early. Our
Uh-uh.
governor didn't really see a need to encourage people to wear masks.
Mm.
And we've had spikes over the last 4 days of 10,000, 11,000 people. Yesterday, I think it was 99,000. So just over the course of the weekend, we've had 40 to 50,000 new cases here in Florida. And this weekend, 4th of July weekend, there were a lot of people who were out socializing. So unfortunately, I don't see us coming out of this. The U.S. never really, went down.
Yes,
We went up and then it kind of plateaued and now it's going back up again, which doesn't look good.
yeah.
And we are about four states who are seeing major spikes right now.
Yes, 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 because you were trying to flatten the curve and then you got this spike. But actually, in Jakarta, I suppose it was the same because I got locked down here during this coronavirus. But we have an obligation. Everybody needs to wear mask. We cannot go out without a mask. So some people, of course, trying to put it down. But anyway, so if you want to enter the mall or any social place, and it was still locked until today. Only now it's starting to open. And only now I hope everything
Yes,
will be good until the end of this year, probably, because a lot of people say that maybe that there would be a second wave, but it might be already not so huge as it used to be at the beginning. Yeah, probably.
probably. Yes.
Yeah.
And I just want to say I have I don't know, probably didn't tell you about this book. A Journey
Oh,
of Riches.
Journey of Riches, Stopping into
So
Courage.
there is
Okay.
a chapter in here that I wrote on courage, and
Oh,
actually it talks about the courage to move to
yeah.
Tallahassee. And the
Okay.
author of, well, to say this series called The Journey of Riches is
Mm-hmm.
John Spender. And John, I met in Bali the first time, and actually ran into him when I was in India, and
Mm-hmm.
then saw him again when I was in Bali the second time, and he came and visited me in the hospital. So I know you're going to put some links in. Um,
Yes,
I
for
will
sure.
put a Cash App link in for Journey of Riches, and I will do signed copies for anyone who would like them.
Of course, for sure, Donna. Or you can give me
Yes.
any links what you want to share. I would be very glad to share your activity and all the things you do and all your work. I suppose it's very important, and that's why I wanted to have this kind of conversation with you, because you are, first of all, you are a citizen of USA. Yes, because you can tell us what's happening, what's really happening there, because the only thing we know from the news. Yes. Second of all, you are as a community. Yes, you are as a person of Black community. That's why I also wanted to have the conversation with you as with a Black woman. What is your perception? And I'm really thankful for these minutes that we had. I have no right to keep you longer. Maybe you have another things to do. Yes.
Yeah, well, I do, but I just want to say thank you, and I'm just thinking of me and remembering the conversations we had, and you did your research,
Mm.
and and I'm so
Yeah.
grateful.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for keeping in touch, and tell everyone in
Yes.
Jakarta I said hello, please.
Yes, for sure, for sure. And please, maybe one day we meet in Jakarta or in Bali again, because you see how many connections you have between Bali and Tallahassee, right? So it's like maybe it's destiny. It's kind of a destiny, right?
Right, absolutely. I do
Yeah.
feel I do want to journey back, and I'm looking
Yes.
forward to seeing you again.
Thank you
I
so
would
much.
too.
It was my
My
pleasure. It was my pleasure having this conversation with you and all the stories that you shared. Thank you so much.
Likewise. Thank you, Anna. Have a wonderful I know it's evening there, it's morning here.
Yes, yes, yes. My Monday is already gone, so that's why it's evening. So I wish you a very great day, because it's morning in
Yes,
Tallahassee.
and you have
Yes.
a good evening. Thank
Thank you
you
so
so
much.
much.
Thank you, Donna. Bye bye. See you.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.